Hello and welcome to In Your Neighborhood, a program that literally visits neighborhoods in the city of Quincy. Joining me today to talk all about Ward 2, well, I guess the best person to do that would be the current city councilor from that ward. That would be Anthony Andronico. Anthony, welcome back.
Mark, thanks for having me again. Excited to talk all things Ward 2 from Quincy Point to Penns Hill about the summer of 2023.
Very good. A lot going on, a lot of activity throughout the city, certainly your ward, no exception.
No, and we don't always have to have city council meetings to have things going on in the ward. The city's 24/7, 365, and there's a lot to talk about for folks to know and catch up on.
Absolutely. We won't spend time on this much, but I do want to mention that the city passed the FY24 budget.
Yeah, we did not too long ago. I think we had 3 or 4 budget deliberations to make sure that we're actually investing in the things people want us to invest in: public safety, education, road repair. A lot of important initiatives this past year. One of the things that had driven up costs for us year over year were increases just for our employees, and that's negotiated union raises and non-union raises as well, to make sure we're keeping up with the market. These folks that go to work every single day for us put in a lot of time. They give a lot of hours for us, and we greatly appreciate what they do, and we wanted to reflect that within our budget this year.
Because of course everything goes up. The cost of living the cost of living goes up, and wages should reflect that.
Absolutely, and I think it was last session myself and Councilor Kane had introduced a resolution to look into the possibility of implementing a residency requirement for new city employees. And of course, you can't implement something like that unless you're paying people a living wage.
Let's talk about some upcoming dates. I guess we'll call this the calendar section of In Your Neighborhood.
Sure. There's a lot of things coming up in Ward 2 and the city as a whole. It's hard to keep track of them all, so I'm just going to run down this list here. Fridays, you can have the Kilroy Square Farmers Market, 12 to 5 through October. August 6th, I think this upcoming Saturday, for when people are checking their calendars, is the 80s and 90s Flashback Party. We've got the August Moon Festival, run by Quarry, which is always a phenomenal community event. We've got the Pops concert on the Common in September, and of course, I always look forward to the Food Truck Festival in October on Coddington Street. And one other thing that's come up and has had a bit of a resurgence are the Friday night events at the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater down at Pageant Field. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go to the inaugural event over there. It was an open mic night. There were so many phenomenal acts, including my dad.
Oh, really?
So I had the opportunity to go and watch him play a few songs. It's one of my favorite things to do. I don't know about everyone else, but at least for me it is. So Friday nights at the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater have been really great, and I appreciate the work of the Friends group for pushing that resurgence.
Well, certainly the support that venue had was amazing, and I suppose the power of that community group. Enough said.
No, absolutely, and I think one of the things that showed the city, and that's elected officials and those that work for the city every single day, is that it's important just to get community feedback and community input before you move forward with particular decisions. And thinking about some other great parks within the city of Quincy, and of course Ward 2 is Faxon Park, over 50 plus acres. It's a great natural park, and one of the things that I've been talking with Dave Murphy, the Commissioner of Department of Natural Resources, on is it's about time that we got some community feedback on what we want to see within that park. So on Monday, August 7th at 6:30 p.m., rain or shine, I'm hosting a community meeting up there to talk about the next phase of improvements at that park and what we want to see. And just to recap some of the things that have already happened in the last couple of years, we have a formalizing of the walking trails up there. We've got new outdoor ping pong tables, which I saw people playing with the other night. We have the first disc golf course in all of Quincy, a little 9-hole beginner course for the Frisbee golf up over there.
Which I wasn't familiar with. And I think, is that a relatively new sport?
Relatively, it is. But what's so great about it is it's a smaller beginner course. So if you've never played before, that's the course for you. It's not a professional course, and you're not talking about a 200, 300 yard, hole. It's just, 50 or something like that. A couple trees in the way.
Still have to get the wrist right.
That is, yeah, it's always a problem, but that's why it's the beginner course. So maybe you could head up there and try your luck.
So there was that was added. The ping pong was added.
Yep. So a few other things just we've been witnessing that the Parks Department's keeping on top of. It's the repointing of those stone benches that are throughout the park, and they need a lot of care, and I appreciate them going up and addressing that. At the end of this summer, we're going to finally replace the pavilion that is up there with a brand new pavilion similar to the one that's over at Pageant Field. And then at this meeting, we're going to talk about what do we want to see moving forward, and that means putting restroom facilities up there. What do we want to do with the former Quincy High School site that at one point in time was going to house a Quincy High School and ultimately didn't? So we still have that land up there, and what do we want to see? Do we want to add pickleball courts in that area? They would be the first within all of Quincy to have that type of facility over there. So there's a lot to talk about, and I really hope that my neighbors show up again on Monday, August 7th at 6:30 p.m., rain or shine.
The pavilion, when you had mentioned that, I was up to get some footage, I believe, for the last In Your Neighborhood show that you and I did, and it was the middle of the day, and there were, I think, about four young people up there playing cards under the pavilion. So just getting out away from the sun, I guess, but enjoying the space.
Well, that's what we want to see in all of our parks, whether you're 5 years old, 50 years old, or 95 years old. We want you to be able to go to all of our parks and have something for you there. And I think that's we have a great opportunity with Faxon Park in particular.
And I know you mentioned the trails. I have done both the red and the blue there. The red, maybe you could go over the type of trail that each is?
Sure. I'd say the Red Diamond Trail is a little bit easier, more of a leisurely walk. And I think the Blue Dot Trail is a little bit more adventurous and sort of the back half of the park that folks aren't necessarily as acquainted with. But they're both lined with wood chips throughout, so you know where you're going. There's appropriate signage. And that was actually a project that was started by a local Eagle Scout years ago and was formalized by the city.
What a great project.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorites, obviously.
And you must have the largest park in the city.
Okay. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Great space.
It's not even close. Yeah.
Let's talk about parks have trees.
Yep.
Let's talk about the planting of trees throughout, I suppose throughout the city, but definitely within your ward. The city has money to spend for the planting of trees.
We do. So I believe it was a month or two ago, the city got 2 grants totaling $130,000 to be able to add to the year-over-year spending, which I think is about $400,000 for tree replanting. So a little over $530,000 now the city has to work with to replant existing trees that have maybe have died and need to be taken down. So replacing those. And the great thing about that funding that we have is citizens can request that a tree be planted in front of their house. And you can do that on the City of Quincy website under the Parks Department. You can call the Parks Department, and of course you can always contact me if you'd like a tree planted in front of your house too.
We should mention that, yes, for those, I'm glad that you mentioned that a phone call is another way to get in touch, because my mother, who of course is a resident of Ward 2, will not touch the computer, so therefore she will not fill out any application regarding trees or anything else for that matter.
Yeah, well, people just want that personal touch, and they want to make sure there's a person on the other end of the line that's getting their request, and there's a certain level of trust there instead of just staring at a computer screen and hoping someone got it on the other end.
It's a generational thing, I'm sure. Also a generational thing. Let's talk about schools, and let's talk about supporting the Clifford Marshall and the Point Webster.
Yeah, so Clifford Marshall and Point Webster, for the second year in a row, I was proud to sponsor their now annual fun run over there. It's a great event that the PTO has started to raise funds for them to help out the school. It was at the end of the school year, not too long ago, but they run from Point Webster all the way to Clifford Marshall. I appreciate the work of the Quincy Police Department for the escorts and the checkpoints along the way to make sure no one loses their place. And I also want to give a shout out to Neon Marketplace this year, because I was able to reach out with them, and they sponsored a water station for the run. It's right at the halfway point between the two schools, so they stepped up to help us out too.
We should mention they did make the last episode, and what an improvement from what that corner was before they came there.
No, absolutely. You know, the improvement over there, instead of an old dilapidated lot and building with broken glass and debris on it, we have a new vibrant space. Now there's a gas station finally in that area of the city. That's a service they've been lacking. They have fresh to-go options over there. You know, the ready-made pizza, or you know, they just pop it in the oven over there. The ready-made sandwiches. They have a good coffee option as well, although I'm pretty partial to Coffee Break across the street. But it's just nice to see that lot return to a certain vibrancy for us. They have great curb appeal, and they're also involved within the community, and they've been happy to step up and help out whenever I've reached out to them.
I know this is not in your ward, but unfortunately it borders your ward, and we're talking about, I guess, staying with blighted properties, or in this case what used to be a blighted property. There's a current blighted property in Braintree. Used to be Burger King.
Yeah, so the Burger King site is actually in Quincy, if we're talking about the one on,
it is.
on Quincy Ave.
Okay, so that's a blighted site.
A lot of people don't think that it is because it's across the street on West and East Howard Street, as you're heading from Quincy Ave in Quincy to Quincy Ave in Braintree, just on the other side.
So I was mistaken as well. Well, that is a good example of a blighted site.
Yeah, absolutely. There was consideration. I had a community meeting at the Fall River Clubhouse a month or two ago for those area residents. There was a potential proposal for a group that wanted to put in a dispensary in that site, which would be the second dispensary in all of Quincy, but it would also only be about a mile from the first and only dispensary that we have. So just in talking with neighbors, it was a great turnout. We had about 30 or 40 people attend. The feedback was overwhelmingly against that, and the main reason cited was that there's already one a mile down the road. You know, and Quincy is required to have a certain number of dispensaries based on the number of liquor licenses that we have.
So don't put them all in one ward.
But that's sort of what we're saying. Not even, you know, don't put them all in one ward, but hey, it's a mile from the other one. I think the next one should probably go on the other end of the city to balance things out a little bit, because there will need to be more than two. I believe the number that we are required to get to and show a good faith effort to get to is 5 or 6, considering that we have a certain number of liquor licenses as well.
And we should mention that if folks aren't aware, there are 6 wards in the city. So I suppose each ward could have one in the future.
I think that's a great suggestion, Mark. So I'll be sure to take that up with the powers that be on the zoning board for the special permits that are required for that.
Let's look at some DPW work, and the reason why I'm turning to that is because Lancaster Street is involved, and of course that is in front of Point Webster School.
Yeah, I mean, first off, hats off to DPW and all the contractors for DPW for doing the road repair and the water and sewer line work over the summer, because it has been absolutely brutal out there with the heat and the humidity. But yeah, just as a quick recap for folks that may not be aware, in spring 2021, my colleagues and I approved a $150 million plan to repave and replace a lot of our infrastructure within the city. And that's $100 million specifically for road and sidewalk repaving and replacing, and $50 million for water and sewer lines underneath that roadway. And we're 2 years into that plan. And so as we continue to go through, more and more streets are getting redone. And one of those being Lancaster Street. So Lancaster is completely repaved now. We've got brand new sidewalks, and not just on the street, but also the little roundabout for the pickup drop-off for the buses that take kids to school at Point Webster over there. So I mean, that improvement, coupled with the new kickball field in the back instead of the big sloping hill that we had over there for a long time, and was the cause of many skinned knees and elbows, have really brightened up the spot. And I think we have a little bit more work to do in that area. One thing I'd like to replace is the CARES facility playground for our youngest students in Quincy Public Schools, where their pickup drop-off is on Edward Street on the other side there. I'd love to just replace the little play area, make it a little nicer, and I think get us to a place we can all be proud of.
Let's stick with schools and talk about the free summer lunch program. And you were actually there to assist.
Yeah, I went by a few weeks ago with Superintendent Mulvey to hand out a couple meals to the kids at the Fort River Clubhouse. And for those that don't know, any child under the age of 18 can go to any of the 5 locations throughout the city of Quincy for the free summer lunch program, Monday to Friday, 11 to 1 p.m. All you have to do is go pick up the lunch. You have it on site. And a shout out to the team that puts together those lunches. It's 600 plus lunches, all made at Quincy High School for the time being, every day to be shipped out to those 5 locations. And they have a really impressive menu. So they've done a great job. I suggest anyone that's curious visit the Quincy Public Schools website to give it a look and learn more about it. But it was really nice to be able to help out with the superintendent the other week handing out meals.
Very nice. We're looking now at the pedestrian rapid response flashing beacons.
Yeah.
The last episode, I got some video of actually I was pressing the button and I was crossing the street, but they are they're quite handy, and certainly safety at the top priority.
No, always is, and that's not just for the pedestrians, but for the vehicles as well, because we want to make sure that everyone's following the rules of the road and doesn't get into an accident or cause an accident. So those rapid flashing beacons, I think the last time we chatted, we said, multiple locations were going to be replaced, and now I'm proud to say that a few locations have been replaced. One of them being on Franklin Street by Norman Road. So that one is completely fixed. That's one of 3 that needed a full repair of an existing site. But I'm also proud to say that we're getting a couple net new ones. Ed Grennan with the TPAL department has confirmed that in August, the first net new rapid flashing beacon is going to go in on Southern Artery by the south wing over there, and that's something that residents have been talking with me about for a while now, and I really appreciate their patience on it, but we're finally able to get that funding in, and I appreciate Ed and his team for committing to putting that in August.
What's nice is that you get the flashing lights, which are harder not to see.
That's right.
Than just the pedestrian crossing at the crosswalk.
Right, daytime or nighttime, it's a lot easier to see, especially at nighttime.
Absolutely.
Just to let vehicles know that, hey, there's someone here, they need to get by. So it's been a nice improvement.
Talk about some time spent with the seniors at 1000 Southern Artery.
Yeah, I went by not too long ago. I go to check in every now and again to make sure things are all right. But if a couple things have been brought up in years past with security improvements. We talked about the addition of a covered bus station on Southern Artery, and I appreciate the work of not only, again, Ed Grennan and the traffic team, but also our partners at the MBTA who are still working to engage with to make sure that that covered bus station actually goes in. On the Southern Artery side, there's one already on the South Street side in between the north and south wings of 1000 Southern Artery. So between that, it was also brought to my attention that there's a smell of a gas leak in the area on Southern Artery all the way from the Presidential Estates to the North Wing building. So I was able to talk with my contact over at National Grid, and he did let me know that they finally were able to pull the permits with the city to address that, I believe, grade 2 leak in the area. So I'm hoping in the coming weeks or month or so, they're finally able to address that problem too. But, a lot of the job is just making sure that when folks reach out, that you get back to them and you do your best to find those contacts to address the concern.
Something that I should have brought up just moments ago when we were talking about the pedestrian flashing beacon is the addition, and we spoke about this in the last episode, of the timed traffic signals. Or not timed, I suppose they're motion detected traffic signals.
Yes, so that's an overall effort to improve pedestrian and vehicle safety and improve traffic overall too. From recollection, we were talking about the 5-way intersection over by the Adams houses and McKay's and the funeral home over there, those tall white poles at the top that can sort of sense that vehicles are lining up or queuing for too long in a certain place to keep traffic moving. So instead of a timed, every section of roadway gets maybe 30 seconds for a green light, and then you wait your turn until another 30 seconds. Those systems can see, okay, there's no one waiting at this line, so I'm not going to give them a green light. I'm going to let traffic continue the other way. But just those types of improvements. From recollection, I want to say Quincy Ave, Washington Street, Independence Ave, the major thoroughfares within Quincy, to make sure that traffic keeps moving, because as we add more and more people, we're up over 101,000 people officially according to the last census. You got to keep traffic moving.
I didn't realize, but you had mentioned it, and I believe you, that the first pickleball court in the city of Quincy could be in Ward 2 if the plans for Faxon Park pan out. The other, I guess, first in the city is also in your ward, I believe, and that is the skateboard park, which is a nice looking park.
Yeah, so the skateboard park, technically Quincy Point, officially in Ward 1. So that's
is it really? Okay.
Hats off to Mr. McCarthy on Pond
you
Street.
border it.
We do. So Washington Street and Pond Street, that's a great skate park over there. I really appreciate the investment the city had made for something like that. But we do have the first disc golf course up at Faxon, and we were talking about with Dave Murphy. He said, well, the demand for an official pickleball court has been so high within the city. That might be a place within the old Quincy High site that you could put a couple and still keep it natural. It'd be tucked away a little bit. So that's something to talk about, and we'll see what the residents say. Again, I want to make sure that people know that when we're talking about these plans and, here's what could happen, it genuinely is, here's what could happen. My job as a counselor, and of course, Mr. Murphy's job within the city, isn't to dictate to people what happens within their neighborhood. Our job is to listen to folks, get that feedback, and then do what they want us to do. And that's what we plan to have happen with Faxon Park.
Well, because you want something that the majority of people can take advantage of.
That's right. And you never know how long you're going to be within local government itself, and you need to be able, whenever your time is done, whether that's by choice or not, look back on your time and say that you did right by your neighbors, because I represent 16,000 people, and these folks are my neighbors. It's not like when you get like a congressman or something, you don't know where they live, you never see them around town. I run into these people at the grocery store in the neighborhood, walking my dog, and having those conversations is really key to, I think, representing them.
At Coffee Break Cafe, you might run into them as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was down there the other day. We brought coffee from Coffee Break Cafe, some pastries from Fratelli's the other day to 1000 Southern Artery, and a couple of the other senior homes within the ward to just talk and catch up. And I think that's what it's all about.
How's everything progressing, I guess, at the Four River Clubhouse?
It's moving forward. It's slow and steady. It's not as fast as I would like it to be, certainly, but the city's invested a good amount of change into making sure that the structural improvements will be there for a long time. So, again, as a recap, or a brief recap of all that's gone in, there was, I believe, asbestos and mold on the underside of the roof. There were leaks into the chimney, so we had to take down the 3-story chimney from the boiler room all the way up. We needed to still replace a bunch of the hardwood flooring. We had to make the bathrooms ADA compliant, and there were a lot of structural issues as well with the building, and not to mention, I think, electrical work that needed to be done over there. But at this moment in time, half of the building, fireplace room, is open, so when you enter in the room off to your right-hand side, we have new ADA compliant bathrooms that are completely open, and now they're in the common area, so eventually when both sides are open and able to be rented, you don't have to go from one room to the other to use facilities. Now you'd go to the common area instead, so we can have 2 events running there at the same time. But I hosted that community event I mentioned about the Burger King site for the potential dispensary there. There have been a few birthday parties over there, and of course we've been having the QPS Meals program run out of there as well. So slow and steady, but it takes a few years for progress, and sometimes it's a little slower than we'd like. But moving forward and looking ahead, what I'd really love to see over there is more senior programming like we run out of the Kennedy Center. Because right now, and we've been talking a lot about it, is we have a pretty high concentration of seniors and senior buildings in this end of the city. And right now they have to go all the way to North Quincy on Quincy Shore Drive to get to the Kennedy Center for senior programming. I just love if there was another option closer to home for them to be able to take advantage of that type of programming.
And I guess just in the last couple minutes, I don't have all my facts together, so you can set me straight.
Okay.
The last council meeting, I believe, Solicitor Jim Timmons did a presentation which would involve your ward, correct?
Yes.
Specifically around the T station.
Yep, and I know exactly what we're talking about with that one. So that is in reference to the MBTA Community Housing Initiative. And that was something that was passed into law by the legislature, I want to say about 2 years ago at this point in time. So in essence, it's a state mandate, and Quincy, being an MBTA community, is responsible for carrying it out. And what that means is we have to have a certain percentage of our land zoned to have multifamily housing by right, not mixed-use housing or something else or just business. It has to have, as part of it, multifamily by right. And you have to establish a particular zone within a certain distance of an MBTA station for it to count. So a quick example, it's like Quincy Center, we have a special zoning district. Although there's a lot of multifamily housing over there and a bunch of condos, that type of zoning does not count because it's not multifamily by right. It's mixed use by right and a few other things, and then subject to the city council. So there's talk of finding a district for that, and right now the city and, the administration is looking at around the Quincy Adams T station on the side of the highway and the former Lowe's and the future MBTA bus lot. So they're looking more at that side and Federal Ave, but it's within a quarter-mile of that station. If you drew a quarter-mile radius around the Quincy Adams station, it's something that's being considered. We'll take it up this fall, and I'll need to be talking with my counterpart in Ward 4, Councilor Devine, just to have a community meeting to make sure everyone's on the same page about what this would mean. And I do want to mention, because my one issue with this has always been mandating multifamily by right, but not allowing any cities or towns to have mixed use by right. Because mixed use is commercial on the first floor and multiple units of housing above it. And to say that you have to, have a certain amount of zoning for like over 10,000 people in multifamily by right, but you won't let us do mixed use, it doesn't make any sense to me, because these people, if they move in, are going to need somewhere to go and places to visit and businesses to frequent, whether that's your local coffee shop, an ice cream shop, maybe a little corner, bodega or something to.
And it's nice to go downstairs and have it right there.
Absolutely, and not only that, but it would cut down on traffic because you wouldn't have to drive anywhere. If you could walk to it, it would make a big difference. So we'll see what happens moving forward with that. But it's definitely something to keep our eye on.
I want to thank you, Anthony, for stopping by. Certainly, as we close, anything that we haven't touched upon that you would like your constituents to know?
No, I just want folks to know that if you have a comment, question, or concern about anything we've talked about here today, or something else within your neighborhood, to please reach out to me at 617-376-1352 or by email at aandronico@quincyma.gov. I always enjoy hearing from folks, and I'll always do my best to help you out.
And as we sign off, I do want to mention that some of the video footage that you did see in this program did include a, man's best friend, I guess. And you can actually tell the folks who that is, and they may actually see you and him around the neighborhood.
Yeah, so a few months ago, my wife and I adopted a rescue puppy, Brody, and he's a big fan of Faxon Park. He accompanies me on all my trips up to Faxon, and he is a big fan of the doggy care stations over there too, so I'm glad that we have them. But yeah, he's always one for the parks and the outdoors over there. So if you see us around, just be sure to say hi.
All right. On that note, thank you again for joining us. And thank you at home for watching. Please continue to support Local Access Television here in the city of Quincy for more programming just like this.